Look, we lost the rest of the song. That's enough of that anyways. We're screwing up the whole beginning of the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bit Nerds. It's like we were not even ready. We're hitting buttons. My name is John Polnik. I'm the host of this stupid show that keeps screwing everything up, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, in San Francisco. I'm here in Las Vegas in the downtown container park. It's been a long weekend. How are you guys out there? Hit the subscribe, like, notification button. We're supposed to say that sort of thing. What's up, Michael Deeb?
Well, it feels like we're tripping across the starting blocks. You know what I mean?
Oh, my gosh. All right. What's up?
Fumbling into the new week, you know?
Absolutely. Are you new to the show? Thanks for joining us. What we do on this show is we talk about the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites like P Car Market, Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, and more. We have a conversation about the car. We go back and forth. Usually I'm right about what's good and what's not. Michael Deeb will make a prediction as to what he thinks that car will sell for. I will counter his prediction, and then we will, boom, go into the future, and we will see exactly what happens with this car's auction end here. So we do a little reconciliation with our predictions and what actually happens. So I don't know, should we just get to the car? Because we're fumbling all over the place. We may as well just get right to the good stuff. That's why people come here. They don't really, who cares about any of our personal crap? Let's get to the car. Boom, there it is. That's the most interesting car of the day. Why?
JP, listen, this RX is a really, really cool car. Think of this as early 90s, similar in era to the 964. And with 255 horsepower, this car was probably a legit alternative to a 964 for certainly about half the money a 964 would have cost back in period. These cars, this particular car sold for $32,000. What we're looking at is a 1993 Mazda RX7, and this particular example is an R1. Now, the R1 is really interesting because it came with essentially like Alcantara micro suede interior, and the R1s had a firmer suspension. Essentially, you had Bilstein dampeners and a more sport-tuned suspension than the touring versions of the car that preceded it. They only made R1s for a couple of years, and by all accounts, they're worth a little bit more money. You may also notice under the front valance is a black sort of rubber plastic. That's a good picture right there, John, of the lower valance that stuck out a little further. And of course, the R1s had a rear wing that was really beautiful. Really cool car. JP, do you recognize this car? This is maybe we could do a new section of to the show. Where are they now? You and I covered this car when it sold in November of 2020. And at that time, JP, the car was offered for sale out of Las Vegas, Nevada. That owner got about $30-something thousand for the car, but he bought it on Bring a Trailer in 2018 and paid also about $30-something thousand for the car. So by all accounts, he bought it, he owned it for a couple of years, and then he sold it for roughly what he paid for it. But I will tell you right now, spoiler alert, this car this time around is going to go for way more money. Beautiful car. I think it's kind of rare in this competition yellow mica paint, but I think the car is really attractive in the colorway. Certainly when you look at these RX-7s, in my opinion, most of them are red and a few of them are black. I think the yellow is really rare and very attractive. It's also worth noting, JP, in this car's history, back in 1995, the car was involved in an accident where it suffered moderate damage. But I think this time around, that Carfax, that part of its history is not going to hold it back. I think this car is going to bring a pretty big value when you consider the low miles, the 42,000 miles, the R1 package, and the yellow paint. I think this car is going to do really well this time. So JP, tell us why you like these cars, or tell us why you don't like these cars. Something about the engines are really fragile, and every once in a while you got to rebuild them. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, I certainly like them. They're what is this, an FD? The rotary guys are going to have to correct me on that, or which generation of RX-7 this is. But this is the best generation for sure, and that engine really the rotary engine in general is a really neat concept. and you can get a heck of a lot of power out of it, but it does require rebuilds far more often, and rebuilds are not as involved as a normal ICE engine. But the problem is now is that there just aren't very many people that know how to do it. So back in the day when rotary engines were a little bit more common, it was kind of like, okay, well, you got to rebuild the engine at 70,000 miles. Oh my gosh, on a 911, that's $30,000. On a rotary engine, you know,
13.
it's 1,300. You know, but
Yeah,
now you know, because here's the thing: there's far fewer moving parts, right?
Yeah.
You know, you look up on YouTube how a rotary engine works, and instead of all these rods and pistons and all that kind of stuff, you just have this thing that moves. It's like a triangle that moves around inside of a circle. As it spins around, it moves the combustion area. It's just it's a really neat bit of engineering.
Right.
They tried to keep the engine going with the RX-8. The RX-8 was just trash, and unfortunately, this design kind of topped out. This is about as good as it gets. A lot of people put turbos on them and try to get way more horsepower out of them, and you can. But again, the if ever
life expectancy.
Yeah, if ever the phrase the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long were truer, this is where it's at. You will just you can way increase the power of this thing, but it is proportionate to how long the engine will last. You will blow it up.
Well, I have driven one of these.
Yeah.
It's twin turbo, and JP, it's a 13B rotary engine.
Yeah.
It's 255 horsepower and about 220 pound-foot of torque. It's light enough that sort of modest claim right there really does feel stronger than it is. It feels like a 300 horsepower car. These things, they rock. They're fun to drive.
They're super light, and you know, because the engine is not like a normal engine, it's like a little box. So it's sitting really far back in the engine bay, which makes it gives it that kind of like mid-engine handling, that front mid-engine type handling that you don't get in many cars these days. I fairly recently, within the last year or two, a couple of years, got to drive the first right-hand drive car I ever drove. Oddly enough, was just a few years ago, and it was one of these going around the Red Rock Loop here in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah,
one of the greatest twisty roads anywhere, because it's just this super twisty road that there's no oncoming traffic. It's one way, so you get 13 miles of just epic rockin' awesome corners. So much fun. But we went back to back. The owner of the car had never driven a Porsche, so he got to drive my 993 at the time, and I drove his RX-7, and it was remarkable how similar they were. If any kind of Porsche fan gets into one of these and drives it and says he doesn't like it, they don't deserve Porsche, because this is just one of the best sports cars ever made. Is it the most exotic? No, but but it really does kind of fit the bill as one of the most interesting cars of the day. That's for sure for us to talk about, and that's why it's here.
Yeah.
I would certainly, if I had the dream garage and it had a lot of slots, there would be a slot for one of these in there. But I don't know. What do we think it's worth, though? Is this the kind of car that's gonna have some resilience in the rockiness of what's going on in the market and inflation and all those fun things, or is this one of those cars that's just the people that want these don't have a lot of money? What do we got?
Japanese cars, JP, are on the rise. I mean, we're regularly seeing Toyota Supra turbos bring well over $100,000. Now ZXs are getting close to $100,000, and RX-7s, nice ones, especially like R1 package cars and low mileage examples that are original and not all modified, and bringing like real collector car market. JP, in 2018, our car sold and bring a trailer for $37,000 out of Mississippi. And then, like I said, when we covered it in 2020 in Las Vegas, the car only $35,000. But wouldn't you know, today, out of Glendale, Arizona, with 6 days to go, our car is sitting at $52,550. Now, if this car was not involved in an accident, I'd suggest that this was an $85,000 example, maybe more, the R1, the yellow paint. But John, I'm going to just be a little conservative on that because of the accident in its history. And I'm going to say it to you at a whopping what did I say, $70,000. So I think going to miss the 80 by about. I think the accident in its history is going to cost it around $15,000. I still think it's going to bring another 18 grand, $70,000 to you. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'll go a little under that. I think it's going to be like 65. I think this is the kind of car that is
A long time to go.
there. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that people love and want, but is it as much as like a Supra of the era? I don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think? Is this the kind of car that people are going to step up for? Did they have any of these in any of the Fast and the Furious movies? I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Sure
a couple
did.
times.
This
Yeah.
is definitely, but I mean, this is definitely the kind of car that guys our age wanted when we were younger. I mean, I remember
for
when
sure.
he was new. I will tell you, one of the best commercials for a sports car ever. I remember when these came out, and Mazda really kind of nailed it with their campaign on the cars. It's like, hey, we're going back to this is a sports car. This is what a sports car is supposed to be like. They got the guy, losing control and driving like an idiot, but it wasn't like super. It wasn't like in a desert. It wasn't like super
Yeah.
manicured. It was really kind of a fun campaign.
Yeah.
And that was in an era when there were a lot of amazing sports cars. The 300ZX was kind of
Yeah.
a new thing, and Japan was really seeing these awesome sports cars. But the sports car was dead. In the early 90s, all any manufacturer really wanted to make anymore was SUVs. That's all anyone would talk about was this news thing. Oh, SUVs are the thing. Look at what a cool term, SUV. And all the manufacturers were talking about killing off all their sports cars. Nissan almost dropped their 300Z, Supra, all of them. They all, and Porsche was in the tank. They almost went under.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
So there's not a whole lot of these out there. They didn't sell that well back then, as great a car as it is. So what do you guys think? Is this car going to bring the big money? We will find out right after you hit the subscribe button and then watch this break. Hey guys, I'm super excited to tell you about our sponsor, Guys Customs. That's Guys, GYX _customs. That's how you spell it. Guys Customs bracelets. These things are amazing. Check them out. They're handmade in America, custom bracelets made to match your watch or your car. These things are unbelievable. I have 3 or 4 of them myself. My partner Michael Deeb has a bunch of them. They're pretty addictive once you get one. Each one of them are bespoke. We're talking carbon fiber. We're talking titanium. We're talking stainless steel, glass. There's none of this cheap Chinese garbage that you see a lot of bracelets being made out there. These ones are super high quality. They're made right here in America. When you go to Guys Customs on Instagram, it's about the only place that you can order one of these. When you DM the artist, you're actually reaching the real artist when you DM Guys Customs at Instagram. And she will make you a bracelet made to match that special watch, that special car, or that special person that has a special watch or a special car and they want something really, really cool in their life. They make the most amazing gifts. I get compliments on mine all the time. Everywhere I go, people are like, wow, that's really cool. You can see in the pictures, these beads, the colored beads are PTS. They're paint to sample. So if you have a specific color code for your car, she'll have beads made that are specifically painted to match your car or your watch. It's unbelievable. You got to get one of these Guys Customs bracelets. Check them out. They support us, and we really, really, really want to support them. Guys Customs bracelets. All right, let's get back to the bids. Let's find out how much that car sold for today. And boom, look at that. We're back to the future. We are here. We're about to tell you about this RX7. You can see my partner Michael Deeb is bundled up. The future apparently is cold, kind of like the stock market apparently. The bears are coming out, so I guess it's time to hibernate. What happened? It seems like this RX7 was still pretty hot. What happened with the results on this thing?
Super hot, JP. Remember, we've seen this car trade. We covered this car before when it was in Vegas. It traded a couple times in the thirds, but I guessed $70,000. You took the under at $65,000. Our car sold on Bring a Trailer for $71,277 on just 14 bids. But I think you and I got this one right as far as the market being so strong. The Japanese cars are so hot right now. It's worth mentioning, JP, that another car closed like over the weekend. Toyota Supra in black, a turbo with a manual and low miles, brought $232,000. So Japanese car right now, collectible condition, the top line sports car. This RX7 in an R1 package, which is the spur suspension, wings, and the Alcantara seats, and like those Supra turbos bringing crazy money. 232 grand. JP, that's 993 turbo money for a Supra. Wrap your brain around these prices. $71,000 for a car, for an RX7 that probably, as we speak, needs another engine build. You know what I mean? Numbers are staggering. I'm surprised, and I'm not surprised because we really did predict it. But damn, these things are hot.
Well, I mean, you may have noticed that all my predictions last week were bearish, and I'm certainly going to go even harder. When this closed last week, I'm not sure exactly which day it was, but we had like a,
Sunday.
This was a Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming off of a week in the stock market where you had, like a 1,200 point, 1.5%, 2% loss. You had inflation reports through the roof. We have the Federal Reserve, again, kind of, they've been asleep at the wheel, and now, they were predicted to do like maybe 50 bips, and they went and did 150. So we've got a full 1.5% increase in interest rates. We've got the prediction that they're probably going to do at least another 50 bips or 100 bips more before the end of the year, and there will be no reductions in 23. That's pretty clear right now. It seems like these guys say one thing, do something else. It's either because they're incompetent or they are lying. Like literally, we're going to have a soft landing or something like that. These things are going to affect the car prices. And the weird thing that's going on right now that I'm noticing, or I'm not unique here, is that it's weird how at the moment it seems like this particular, asset class, if you will, seems to be somewhat immune, whereas everything else is cratering. Crypto is cratering, precious metals are cratering, clearly the stock market is cratering, and homes are, real estate is just flat. How long will cars continue to hold their value? There is no earthly reason why anyone should be out spending $70,000 on an old RX-7 when everything else is just taken an ish. What do you think about that, Michael Deeb?
I agree. I mean, the way that the interest rates are coming on, it almost feels like an attack on the economy. Like, I get that they want to try and balance things out and, as they say, combat inflation, but it's brutal that these types of increases, this number of increases is going to be crippling on the economy. My sister is trying to prepare to sell her house, and I think she's out of her mind. I think she should just move back into it and sit and wait this thing out, even if it takes years, not months. But she's convinced that she's going to do okay. And I agree with you, John. I don't see it. And I'm shocked by these prices. I do have this hot take that Japanese cars are on fire right now, but the market in general, I agree with you that I'm surprised that we haven't seen more staggering prices. We're continuing to see things sell. Occasionally something fails to sell. But even the high bid is still a number that's close to a reflection of retail market, instead of seeing buyers just vanish completely and everything just rot on the vine on these auctions. It is a head scratcher that things like this are bringing record numbers. Remember, in the last couple of years, this exact RX-7 has sold twice in the 30s, and now all of a sudden it's bringing $70,000. That's crazy.
Yeah. There's no doubt that with inflation, we've talked about it on many other cars before. It's like, okay, an increased price is really a flat price. So if you bought something for $100,000 and then sold it a year later for $105,000, but there is 15% inflation, then you have a net loss of 10%. It's pretty basic math, right? But this car specifically represents a genuine increase, even even in real dollars, the economic term being adjusted for inflation. So
Agreed.
I think there's going to be a tipping point at some point. I don't know if we're necessarily going to see prices crater on these, but I do think we're going to see like lots of FTSs. I think we're going to see lots of reserves being failed to meet, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to wind up in a stagflationary period where not only do you have inflation going on, but you just don't have any capital mobility whatsoever, and it won't matter what price the car is, and people won't want to drop the prices so much because they know they're still at some point is value, and people still do have some kind of optimism bias at the moment where they say, okay, well, there's been 3 or 4 other crashes in the last 3 years, and each time we thought the sky was falling, it's bounced back up. But that's because, once again, the feds have been asleep at the wheel. Let's be clear here. There was a crash in when COVID happened or whatever, and the feds just completely, dumped interest rates. They printed literally trillions upon trillions of dollars over the last couple of years, and then they practiced quantitative easing, where they bought up all the bonds and all the, T-bills and stuff like that. So all the excess liquidity out there couldn't buy anything safe and conservative, so they went out in all these other weird asset classes. It's going to be a weird, rocky road for at least the next 18 to 24 months. Expect no big, purchases. All the VC guys are clamming up. All the dry money is, coming out, or dry storage money is getting activated. But that kind of money, you don't see that for 6 to 18 months. So anyway, it's going to be crazy.
Bringing it back to cars one last time, JP.
Yeah.
This car was one of the lone bright spots from the cars we covered last week, in that it did a little bit better than both of us anticipated, even though we anticipated a bright result for it.
Yeah.
Do you think that this generation of the RX-7 is like a blue chip worthy collectible, like a car that somebody who wants to collect cars, that this is something they should consider for their collection as a car with a bright future? Do you believe in this car, or do you think it just was brought up by some of the other truly blue chip collectibles, like the prices we've seen on NSXs and Toyota Supra Turbos from Japan?
Well, okay, let me be a little kitschy with this answer.
Go ahead.
If we think that the market is in for a rocky road for 18 to 24 months, there are a lot of things that could happen in that next 18, 24 months. Let's say, best case scenario, we do see some kind of economic turnaround and things start to look bright in 2 years. That's 2 years, people. What do you think? What do you expect the environment, the political environment will be regarding ICE cars in 2 years from now?
Boy, that's such a good question. There's no easy answer for like a short format. That could be a whole podcast.
That's a whole podcast. Yeah,
because it's like it's time to poop or get off the pot. And I think, the argument is that the carbon footprint of creating batteries is not sustainable either. So if we're giving up ICE cars to convert to battery operated cars, are we really taking one step forward or half a step backwards?
Well, you're right. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. It's more about, what do you think the political environment will be surrounding ICE cars in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years? We already know that there are certain states that are going to be giving up the sale of ICE cars, ICE cars, within X amount of years. Do you think that environment's going to get better or worse?
In the time that I've known you, the entire conversation of converting has picked up steam.
Yeah.
I think the logical thinking would be that it'll just continue to gain momentum. But I do think it's going to be more difficult than everybody wants it to be. So I think in 2 years' time, there's going to be, how like, oh, we're going to raise interest rates or we're going to reduce interest rates. And then like the day comes and they're not reduced or they're not increased. They keep pushing the finishing line
by a crazy amount, much higher than they said they were going to do.
In this case, but logically, I think that the finish line is going to be pushed out. So I think in 2 years, they'll still be ahead. But I just like the idea that we're going to completely convert by 2030 or 2035. I think that'll get pushed out a little further. I do think batteries will be coming, but I think they'll be delayed. So in 2 years, I think it'll be as feverish a conversation as it is today, but I don't that we'll be on time to the conversion. And ICE cars will not I think they'll continue to exist a little longer than that maybe the governing body wants it to. But I think it's
hold on though.
change.
It's not about like will conversion happen in 2 years or even 5 years or hell even 10 years. The question is really in 2 years. Let's just call it 2 years. Best case scenario is when we get a rebound on the economy. Okay, so in 2 years, will we be closer to the end of ICE cars? Or further away? Will that, it's like, okay, and the answer, of course, is much closer.
Closer, yeah.
I think that classic cars as an asset class need to be very carefully examined. There are certain cars that will always have intrinsic collector value. A 65 911 is always going to be worth something because you don't even have to drive it for that to be worth something, right? This RX7 is by no means a first year 911, but it's way more collectible than, let's say, something like, I'll go ahead and say it, a Lamborghini SVJ, right? That is worth all kinds of money right now. It's a fairly new car. It's an exotic car, but that's, it's a flash in the pan. There's always something more exciting and new and bigger and better and badder the next day. This car, I think, has a better chance of holding its value than almost any current exotic car. But all right, we got to move on, guys. What do you think about this? We'd love to hear in the comments below. If you haven't hit the subscribe, like, or notification button, please do now. And we are going to tell you what the most interesting car of the day is on tomorrow's episode, because we do this pretty much every day. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching.